Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keys to Success for Music Majors. My name is Charley Roush, and I am a librarian at UTRGV, and I work with the subject of music quite a bit.
And my name is Katrina Roush. I'm a professor of music theory at UTRGV.
Well, welcome, everyone. We have another special guest with us this week. This is Geo Flores. He is a graduate of one of our legacy institutions, UTB and he graduated back around 2010. Geo is a librarian, and we thought this would be an exciting opportunity to talk about some other career options that maybe we don't always get into with our other episodes. So obviously last week we talked about or last time we talked about electronic music. We talked about how the normal career paths people associate with music majors might be performing or maybe education. And then we, with electronic music, talked about some other options. Well, there are really a lot of exciting options librarians or students can find with the expertise, with this special training they have going through a music degree. I'm proof of that. Geo is proof of that. You can actually work in libraries, and libraries need people that know about music resources, about how to help students and faculty and patrons, or like in public libraries, people in the communities, access music resources for all kinds of reasons. And so it's a really a good special set of skills that you can develop and have to be an effective person in a library to help with all this specialized content. So you can work in a general library, you can work in a music library. We're going to circle around some of these topics in today's conversation. So I just want to start us off here. First of all, welcome, Geo. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your current position? If you have a second, what is your background? What brought you to this role? And what do you hope to further pursue in your career?
Yeah, hello. First off, thank you for having me on the show. It's very exciting. But yes, presently I am more specifically a music cataloger at Baylor University. So that means that I take the music that has come into the library and describe it as a resource. So I have to make sure that the system understands who the composer is, what key it's in, what genre of music, whether it has parts or is just a single score, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of different information that the system needs to understand in order for the music resource to be searchable in the catalog. In addition to that, there's also some light music end processing that goes into it. So we also prepare the scores for to be bound into the protective little binders that you probably see in your library, so that it all looks, so that it's all kind of safe for your little sheet music that's very fragile and it's definitely not going to stand up on its own. But yeah, so we do a lot of those different things within Baylor. And as for my personal background, I attended, as you said earlier, UTB TSC as a music major. I originally thought that I would be going into education, and I suppose in a roundabout way, I've sort of done that, being an academic librarian. But I figured that I would be a choral director. My background is in vocal. So it turned out while I was there that I discovered that I am not a one for teaching, especially not for young students. And so I came to a point where I had to really think about what it was that my personal strengths were and what it was that I enjoyed about my profession. And eventually I came around to the idea that what I really enjoyed was more the academic side of music. I love performing, don't get me wrong, but that was definitely my strength, was the more academic pursuits. And so when it came down to it, I started looking into other careers. I actually hadn't even considered music librarianship. And a friend of mine had gone into librarianship, and I thought, well, that sounds like something I can do. And so while looking it up, I discovered that there is a whole sub genre of librarian that is a music librarian. And so I thought, well, that's wonderful. This is something that I can pursue. And it was basically, I just kind of threw myself into it. I've only really been doing it for a little over 2 years now,
Okay.
from the day that I decided I am going to be a music librarian. So it's been a fast introduction into the field, and I have had some small success so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
excellent.
Yeah. And Gio, you brought up some really excellent points. I think they kind of
Mhm.
resonate with my journey too. I think we get into music school and sometimes we hear that, are you going to perform? Are you going to be an educator?
Mhm.
And certainly those are absolutely valid and vital tracks
Yeah.
to do with these skills. But really, librarianship was something I hadn't thought about either. But I experienced similar, thoughts that you expressed. Like, do I want to perform? Do I want to be an educator? Like, I love performing too. I love learning about music. I love teaching about music. But I had never even thought about libraries, and maybe the first time or two I heard about it, I thought, well, maybe that could be a fallback. Maybe that could be another thing I could do. But really, I'm finding that this is, like you said, something that's very interesting, something very fulfilling and vital and important. And so I think when we start our music degrees, sometimes we have sort of a narrow focus of what can happen. And this totally resonates with what we talked about in our last episode. There's really a lot of options, a lot of things you can do with these skills, with this background. Music librarianship and librarianship in general is not a fallback at all. It's totally a valid career. And as Gio said, and I'm affirming here, it's like wonderfully fulfilling. And just a quick side note, I've worked in music libraries that only dealt with music. It sounds like, Gio, you're focusing mainly with music materials, but you can also use your musician skills as a regular librarian, and maybe you'll interact with several subjects, and music will be one of them. So
Right.
both are like things that folks do.
Right, because that's what you have.
That's what I'm doing right now more. Yes, exactly. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so Gio, would you mind telling us, just talking a little bit about what types of jobs exist for those who are interested in librarianship? Like you said that you're a cataloger. I think that a lot of times we see the person at the front desk and we kind of like know that that's a librarian, but what other things can you do in a library if you have that career?
Yeah, so the first thing that people asked me, my friends and family, when I told them that I was working from home as a music librarian, they said, "How do you put the books on the shelves from home?"
Yeah.
And I said, that's not really what a librarian does most of the time. In fact, I would say there is a 99.999% chance that the person putting the book on the shelf is not a librarian. They're probably a volunteer. They're probably a paraprofessional. And again, that 0.001%, yeah, I suppose it could be a librarian, but we've usually got a bunch of other stuff to do that requires like really specialized skills. As you said, in my particular case, I'm a cataloger. So that requires what I've already mentioned, just sort of resource description and working with metadata. So all of that is just fancy words to say that I tell the system what it is that we have in our catalog so that it can be found.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of our other library. And here's a good point to mention that you mentioned about how music librarians also frequently work with other things. And so even though I am the music cataloger, I also work with DVD materials and visual medium.
Okay.
So I also do a lot of resource and description on those sorts of things. So if you find a DVD on how to, I don't know, how to, one of the more bizarre titles, how to buy things,
Okay.
that was cataloged by me, so there's some interesting materials that can go in there, not just the music. And frequently, as you said, if you are a music cataloger, you interact with a lot of different things. But of course, there's also music archiving and rare book collections.
Okay.
And this sometimes happens in larger institutions, but it doesn't necessarily need to be larger. Baylor itself is not a super large institution, renowned, yes, for certain, but not the largest institution. But we have a small collection of special music materials that need to be very carefully tended to and preserved. So preservation is another route that you can take. And frankly, it's something that's been catching my interest lately. I've been toying with the notion of taking some bookbinding courses, because I think that would be really interesting to be able to work with.
Really cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But also there's of course the acquisitions processing. So then you're the one who's going to be maybe liaising with the music department, seeing what it is that they are asking for, what it is they need, and then making those orders, making sure that you don't have more than 25 copies of Eine kleine Nachtmusik. You know, you only need 20, really. Anything more is excessive. But then, of course, you don't even need to work in an academic library. As Charles pointed out earlier, you can work in a public library, and especially if it's a very large public library, they'll probably have a dedicated music section. And you'll probably still be working with a lot of the other materials, but they will value you as somebody who can really understand everything that needs to be understood about the music portion of their library. And there's actually a third location that we haven't mentioned yet, which is being the music librarian for a concert band or an opera company or an orchestra.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
And those are really specialized, because then you're not just maintaining the music library, but frequently you're also preparing scores and preparing parts for the performers. So that can be a huge, huge thing. It's very different from academic and public librarianship. But it is also a really interesting field to go into. And that's also a lot more if you want to be like more in the action as a librarian. Then you have a much bigger role in the performance, I guess you could say.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's really a team effort. You know, there's so much that goes into accessing, purchasing, acquiring, processing, describing, and then making ways for this to be available for folks to use. And there's a whole, you know, public facing side of it too. Maybe librarians aren't the ones necessarily always sitting behind the desk, but if you have questions about research needs, or you're trying to work on assignments, or maybe you're a professor and you want to do some music research, there are definitely librarians available to help with those types of questions and pursuits as well. Or if you're in like a public library, maybe folks use the collection in a different way than would happen at an academic library. But you know, if you're not really super immersed in the musical world, you might wonder, why do we have 380 pieces called concerto? You know, like, and and so sorting through that, or even if it's more popular music or something like that you're talking about, there's a knowledge, I think, that really helps sift through that and find things really quickly, and so that's why librarians can be tremendous resources. Geo, thank you so much. This is great. I have another question for you.
Sure.
So if someone is interested in preparing for a career in librarianship, what can students do? What type of education is needed, or what things can folks do now, maybe even if they're in high school or they're just starting an undergrad? What types of experiences or knowledge would be helpful in getting ready to go on to potentially become a librarian?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You sort of accidentally called me out here. I'm very much work in the back office, back end part of the library. So I completely neglected like reference librarians and, you know,
no worry at all.
Literary instruction.
Okay, it's a team effort, and if no one's describing and processing it, we're not going to find anything. So
we do. I mean, because Charley is more of a public facing library. We do talk about that, you know, music research and materials and things, but we've never really talked about the back end on our podcast before.
Not really, no.
I think that's something that, like, because it's not visible to us, we don't realize there's like a whole, like, I don't know, a whole floor full of people that we never interact with.
Hey, dear users, or dear listeners or viewers, listen, you cannot find anything unless somebody brilliant has done some amazing processing on the back end. So we depend on them like explicitly, and I think they go unnoticed and make us look good, but it's because of their backbone of hard work. So
we take the credit.
Quite the mutual admiration society we've got here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy.
No, but as to your going to your question though, I think the most important thing in several ways is to just have a background in libraries already. Like I said, I'm barely over 2 years since I made the decision to become a music librarian. And the very first thing that I did was volunteer at my local public library, because in a lot of in a lot of degree programs or in a lot of job applications, the very first question that they're going to ask is, do you have experience in a library?
Right.
Okay.
And frequently the easiest way to get that is to volunteer.
Mhm.
I didn't even volunteer for very long. I was probably volunteering at a Houston Public Library for maybe 3 months before I got my first position as a cataloger. And so from there, I was able to, of course, get into music library or library school, I should say. And from what I've seen from a lot of music librarians, the way that they talk about library school is that most of it, there's not really a very specific music librarian track. And so if you really want to go into music librarianship, then a lot of that is going to have to be on your own initiative. Uh, and so, of course, it helps to have a music background. A lot of music librarianships positions are going to say that it is preferred that you have at least a bachelor's or even a master's in music.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so, of course, that's something that it kind of almost goes without saying on a podcast called "Tips for Success for Music Major" or what have you.
Right.
So if you are listening to this because you're a music major, you're already on the right track for music librarianship. But having that experience in a library setting is super helpful. And then from there, it's about finding those inroads. And that's one of the inroads that I had was through MLStEP, the organization that I'm the chair of right now, Music Library Students and Emerging Professionals. It was through them that I was able to find the job that I eventually found my way into, and as a paraprofessional, and was able to start getting experience. I was able to do this while I finished my music library degree, and now I am able to apply for more professional positions. I will actually be speaking at the Music Library Association conference next year in Salt Lake.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that just small things that you can do to prepare. But first thing is volunteering, then finding your first job, and then getting that library degree. Oh, it's very unlikely that you will find library work without the degree. Usually if you do, it's because you have a really highly specialized set of skills, or because you've just been working in a library for so long that you really can demonstrate the ins and outs of a library and how it works. So a library degree, if you want to work in music librarianship, is going to be pretty critical if you want to do it in the next 5 years as opposed to the next 10 to 20 years.
Okay.
And that library degree, that's a master's degree?
That is usually, yes.
I don't think we have one here at UTRGV.
No, I don't think so.
But there are many places in Texas where you can go and get one.
Yeah, and I should say that the library degree is completely doable online, which is what I did, which was very helpful during COVID times.
Yeah.
And in Texas, we are blessed with 3 different in-state tuition online library degrees. So UT Austin, Texas Women's University, and UNT, University of North Texas. So all 3 of those have library schools that you can do it pretty much entirely online.
Okay.
That's really
and
cool.
Quick note, good idea about the volunteering. I don't know if every library has the same feelings or thoughts on accepting volunteers, and maybe it's different in public versus academic libraries. But I know UTRGV is always looking to hire UX student workers, especially maybe at the beginning of the fall semester. And so if you're looking for a job on campus, that's a great way to get some library experience and really have a nice job as a student. So I guess if anyone has any questions about that, let me know, and I can show you how UTRGV specifically handles that type of thing.
Yeah.
And if you're going through the public route or to an academic library that at an institution that you don't go to, so you're looking for a volunteer position, you gotta harass them. Oh my God, they get so many applications for volunteers from the community that you're probably going to end up on a backlist backed up for like 24 people, and so the person who's haranguing them about, hey, what's my application going through? Is it almost done? How many days? That's the person who's going to get moved to the front of the line. So you stop calling.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you already mentioned the MLStEP organization, but where are some places that people can go to find more info about careers in music librarianship? If they're watching this and they are interested, where can they just go to learn more or to get involved in some of this stuff?
Yeah, the Music Library Association website is a good place to go to, not just get information about what it is, what music librarianship is, but
Mhm.
also in the various fields, the various subfields, look up job positions. And I think that that's actually an interesting way to start, is to see what kind of job positions are out there. Because
Yeah.
especially if you have no idea what you're talking about right now, looking at those job positions can really give you a good idea of what kind of work it is that you want to do, or what kind of work is expected, and what kind of work is in demand. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but it's also interesting to look through the various interest groups as well associated with music librarianship. So you have your archiving, your collections, and all of that kind of stuff, good stuff. But then you also have like jazz studies, video game music librarianship.
Yeah.
You have, Americana, small libraries, and all of those kinds of things are really fascinating to look into. And of course, I'm going to plug again MLStEP.
Mhm.
MLStEP is a student slash early professional organization. And so we're all about helping you to get into music librarianship and make the transition from student to early professional easily, or easier, I should
Mhm.
say. I don't know that it's always very easy in even the best of circumstances, but we're here to sort of support each other and create a cohort and all of that kind of stuff. And on our website, you'll be able to find your regional liaisons. So the country, US and Canada, I should say, are split up into 10 different regions. And for most of them, we have a regional chair. For those that we do not presently have a regional chair, you can, of course, contact me, mlstepchair@gmail.com. If you want to speak to somebody, not everybody is comfortable with just like browsing a website. They have specific questions and they just want
Right.
somebody to answer them. And so I'm totally understand that, and I'm always happy to speak personally with people.
Mhm.
That's excellent. I love that you have the ML Step group because I think sometimes it's a little intimidating to just like go to a library conference or something, as like if you don't really know what you're doing,
Mhm.
or if you're like, I'm not even sure if this is something that interests me, but it sounds like you guys are a very welcoming group, and so even if a student's like, I don't know if this is for me, they can still get involved with what you guys are, or at least like ask you some questions to see if it's right. So I love that you guys have such a open arms to everybody like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely. And we actually had somebody who wasn't part of music librarianship at all. She's just a normal librarian. It feels weird to say, but she presented at Music Library Association in 2019, I believe it was, about processing music materials in a public library. And so, you don't even have to necessarily be dead set on music librarianship in order to still have an impact and a role in the field.
Sure,
That's really awesome.
sure.
Yeah.
And I just want to echo this theme that Gio and Katrina are mentioning. I think people are they like the field, they like their job, they like this work. It's important work, and
Mhm.
it makes us all happy to hear that folks are interested in exploring this as a potential career path.
Mhm.
We love to answer questions.
Yeah.
MLA is a great organization. They're happy to help if you have questions or want to know more. MLStep is great, and as Gio mentioned, he's happy to talk to folks, and me too. If you have any questions or you want to know what it looks like to start a career or do different paths with a librarianship career, music or otherwise, yeah, reach out to me too. Happy
Yeah.
to talk about it always. And I think if I wish I would have known some of what I know now, like in
Yeah.
early parts of my undergrad degree, I think it would have changed my thoughts on how I would have positioned my career. I might have gotten
Mhm.
into it a little sooner had I known.
Mhm.
So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna wrap up
Yeah.
here.
Can I ask our one last
Oh, go
question?
for it. Yeah.
So, Gio, something that we like to ask people that appear on our podcast is what's something that you do for fun in your free time? Maybe not associated with your career, but just something else that you like to do.
Oh, nothing. I have no inner life. I only do music libraries, and that's my entire identity. No, I do. I like having a lot of hobbies, and so in a broad sense, I'm just kind of a generally geeky person. And so like I like taking on projects. I've done podcasting on a limited level before. Just sort of like, I'm not even going to plug it because, you know, it was more of a something for me, you know, and it doesn't need to be broadcast to the entire world. But, you know, I enjoy creating and I enjoy performing. And so I've done some low level voice acting as well. And again, stuff that I don't really want to plug because it really is just for me.
Yeah,
It's just
fun.
something that, yeah, that I enjoy doing. And so there's a lot of that, but I also compose in my own time and do some creative writing as well. And again, like I would love to plug all of these things, but I definitely am not going to because everything I do right now presently is just for me. You know, you ask any professional author or artist or what have you about something that they did in their 20s, and they'll probably be really embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm in my 30s and I think I'm still in that phase. So
Yeah. I totally understand that too.
yeah.
All right, so yeah, I think we are gonna wrap it up. We'll go ahead and share some contact information here. I know that Gio mentioned the emailing the MLStEP chair, so you can email that address and you'll get him. And so if you have any questions about what we've been talking about today, please feel free to email. And if you want to check out the MLStEP blog, you can go to the website that we've listed here and check that out. And also, if you want to find out who your regional liaison is, if you have one, there you can find information about that on there. One thing that we didn't put up here is the Music Library Association website. You can just Google Music Library Association, and that'll take you right there. So
yeah, we can have that below the description.
Yeah, we can list that below below the video on YouTube for you guys. And then, as always, here's our information here. Please feel free to contact me if you have questions about the music program at UTRGV or music in general. If you have other questions about music librarianship or about what we have here at UTRGV in terms of student workers or materials, you can ask Charley. And yeah, feel free to email us at UTRGVKeysToSuccess if you have any suggestions for future podcasts or would just like to chat more about this episode.
Alrighty, well, we're gonna wrap up here. First off, thank you so much, Gio, for joining us.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. Thank you. And hang in there, everybody. We're getting near the end of things. So a few more weeks, and we're gonna be on holiday break. So way to go, making it this far, and keep on keeping on because. You know, it's just day by day we make
day by day.
Yeah. Alrighty, everybody. We'll talk to you in a few weeks. And again, thanks for being a wonderful audience. Thank you much.
Thanks. See you later.
Goodbye.